Hey everyone! Most of you watching aren't subscribed. If you haven't yet, please smash that subscribe button so that we can hit 1,000 subs together. Let's do this. I thought it was going to be a normal night. We'd matched through a friend's group chat and decided to meet at her place instead of going somewhere public because she had a surprise she wanted to show me. I didn't think much of it, figured maybe she baked something or had some kind of party trick up her sleeve. I told myself it would just be casual, nothing to worry about. Her apartment was small but neat. She greeted me at the door all smiles, led me inside, and we sat on the couch talking for a bit. It felt ordinary enough. She offered me a drink, asked about my week, and laughed a lot. The kind of start where you relax and think, all right, maybe this won't be awkward after all. Everything about her mannerisms seemed warm, inviting, maybe a little too eager. But I brushed it off. Then she disappeared into the kitchen. When she returned, she was holding a knife. Not a small kitchen knife, either one of those big chef's knives with a heavy, intimidating blade. She didn't look nervous or apologetic. She said she wanted to show me a skill she had. She was grinning, holding it loosely in one hand, spinning it slightly so the light caught the blade just right. I laughed nervously, assuming she meant some kind of cooking trick, but she didn't move toward the kitchen or the counter. She stayed in the middle of the room, just staring at me with it in her hand. She started flipping it in her palm, letting it spin before catching the handle again. She was fast, precise. My stomach sank. She was good at it, but the way she kept glancing at me while doing it made my unease grow. Every flick of the knife felt deliberate, as though she was testing me. I leaned back on the couch instinctively, keeping my hands close to my chest. I like testing people's reactions, she said, smiling. At first, I wasn't sure if she was joking, but the smile didn't look playful. It looked calculated, like she was studying me, waiting for something to show. She came closer, spinning the knife all the while until she was standing directly in front of me. The blade hovered just above my knee with each flick, catching the light in flashes. I could feel the rush of air every time it spun past me. My heart was pounding, and I tried to keep my voice steady. Maybe you should put that down before someone gets hurt, I said. She crouched slightly, holding the knife out, as if she were going to hand it to me. Then, at the last second, she pulled it back and laughed. I like seeing if people flinch, she said. Then she did it again, leaning in, brushing the blade close to my arm, then pulling away. It wasn't funny anymore. My palms were sweating, my eyes darting to the door, but she was still standing between me and the exit, twirling the knife like it was a toy. She asked if I trusted her, and every time I tried to answer, she waved the blade an inch from my face. It was like a game to her, but one I didn't want to play. She never stopped watching my eyes. Every flinch, every subtle hesitation she noticed. I could feel my body getting heavier with tension, like it was trying to anticipate the next move before it even happened. I wanted to move, to make a break for it, but she was always there, always controlling the space between us. Finally, she sat down next to me on the couch. Knife still in hand, the tip resting against her leg, she stared at me and asked if it made me uncomfortable. I said yes, my voice tight, hoping she'd finally put it away. Instead, she tilted her head and smirked, like she had been waiting for that answer all along. Then she started talking about how people get too soft these days, and how nobody could handle a little danger anymore. Every so often, she tapped the blade against the couch cushion, a dull, unnerving thud. I kept my eyes on her, trying to appear calm, but my mind was racing with escape plans, routes, anything I could do to leave without triggering her. After what felt like an eternity, she stood up and walked toward the kitchen again. My heart was hammering, and I used the moment to grab my jacket from the back of the couch, inching toward the door. I tried to keep my movements casual, hoping she wouldn't notice. But of course, she did. She came back, still holding the knife. This time, she leaned casually against the doorframe, blocking my exit. "Why are you leaving so soon?" she asked. I mumbled something about having an early morning, trying to sound lighthearted. She studied me for a long moment, then, Finally, she stepped aside just enough for me to squeeze past. I didn't waste time. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and didn't look back. I could feel my heart still racing as I got to my car. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys once before finally starting the engine. I drove home without turning on the radio, listening only to the sound of my own breathing, trying to will myself calm. I never texted her after that night. A couple of days later, I received a message from an unknown number. It said simply, "You passed the test. No name, no explanation." Just those 4 words staring back at me on my screen. I blocked it immediately, my stomach twisting as I imagined the knife in her hand. Even now, months later, I remember the way the blade glinted in the light, how close it came to my face, and the unnerving calmness she radiated while wielding it. I don't know if she was genuinely dangerous, or if it was all some elaborate sadistic game for her. But I do know this. Every time I think back to that night, the image of her spinning that knife and watching my every reaction refuses to leave me. And I can't stop wondering, how many people has she done this to before me? How many others have felt their pulse spike as they sat frozen, waiting for her next move, all while she smiled like nothing could touch her? I knew something was off, but it took me way too long to figure out why. We'd been talking for about a week before deciding to meet. He picked a small Italian place just outside the city, somewhere I'd never been before. At first, I figured it was fine. It had decent reviews, and I liked the idea of it being quieter than the usual downtown spots. I told myself that the distance was probably a good thing. Less crowded meant less noise, less chaos, maybe even a better chance to get to know him. When I got there, he was already sitting down. Not at a table in the main dining area, though. He'd picked one tucked into the far corner, right next to a wall and away from all the other customers. I thought it was maybe for privacy, but the placement bothered me more than I let on. The staff barely walked past us, and nobody was sitting within earshot. Still, I tried to brush it off. Maybe he just liked quiet corners, I told myself. The first few minutes were normal. We ordered drinks, I got water because I was driving, and some bread came to the table. He seemed friendly enough, asking a lot of questions about me, barely talking about himself. I noticed he kept refilling my glass from the jug on the table, even when it wasn't close to empty. I smiled politely, thinking he was just being considerate, maybe even charming. About 20 minutes in, I started feeling weird. Not sick exactly, but heavy, like my head was full of cotton. My vision didn't blur, but focusing on him felt harder than it should. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it was probably just the heat in the restaurant or that I hadn't eaten much all day. But the sensation didn't go away. Then I noticed the way he was watching me. Not the way people usually look at someone they're interested in. It wasn't gentle, flirty, or warm. It was precise, almost clinical. Every time I lifted my glass to sip water, his eyes followed it, tracking every movement. I reached for the bread, trying to shake it off, but even my hands felt sluggish. I laughed internally, thinking I was just tired or anxious. But then it clicked. I had been fine before I sat down. The only thing I'd consumed since getting there was water that he had poured each time. My stomach sank. A cold knot of fear began to form as I realized what could be happening. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking, but my gut had already started sounding alarms. I put the glass down and pushed it slightly away from me. He noticed. Without saying a word, he reached forward, slid it back toward me, and topped it up again. I didn't drink it. That's when I realized how isolated we were. The front door was out of sight, and the nearest occupied table was at least 20 feet away. The servers barely came to our section unless waved down, and even then it wasn't immediate. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me that I needed to leave. I told myself I had to do it carefully, though. Panic could make the situation worse. I stood up and said I needed to use the bathroom. He offered to walk me there, which I thought was strange because the bathrooms were literally inside the restaurant. I said I could find it myself, but he stood up anyway, walking beside me like he wanted to make sure I didn't wander near anyone else. Inside the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face, hoping it would shake the fog from my head. I stared at myself in the mirror and tried to force calm, but the heaviness hadn't gone away. My pulse raced as I realized I couldn't ignore what had been happening. He had been pouring that water over and over, watching me, waiting to see how I'd react. When I came out, he was standing by the wall. He smiled, that same smile that had seemed normal at first but now felt calculated and predatory. He started walking me back to the table, and I stopped. "I just need to call my friend quickly," I said, fumbling with my phone. I could see irritation flicker across his face, subtle but unmistakable. I walked toward the entrance instead of returning to the table, keeping my phone in hand. I didn't actually call anyone. I just needed a reason to keep moving. He followed me for a few steps, then paused. I think he realized I wasn't coming back. Outside, the air hit me like a wall. Cold and sharp, it cleared some of the fog in my head, but I still felt dizzy enough that I had to stop for a moment, gripping my phone like it was a lifeline. I didn't look back. I walked briskly to my car, unlocked the doors, and got in. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys once before finally starting the engine. I sat there for a minute, listening to the quiet hum of the city and the faint sound of cars passing by. I watched the restaurant entrance. He didn't come out. That almost made it worse, knowing he could have followed me if he'd wanted to, and choosing not to. It wasn't over. I knew that in my gut. On the drive home, my head slowly started to clear, and the heaviness in my body faded. The realization hit me in waves. It wasn't just my imagination. That glass of water wasn't normal. I blocked his number the second I got home. I didn't call anyone or post about it because I didn't want to hear the lectures, the "you should have been more careful" lines. I didn't need reminders that I'd been lucky. But the memory of him pouring that water over and over while watching me intently makes my stomach turn even now. And I keep thinking about that part of the restaurant, the quiet corner, isolated and empty. How easily he could have done something. How little anyone would have noticed. How calculated it was. How he had chosen that spot deliberately, knowing it gave him control. Now, I pour my own drink every time I go out. Even at home, even at work, I check the water, I pour it myself. I can't shake the instinct. It's not paranoia, it's survival. And I don't think that feeling will ever fully go away. I thought the night was going fine until I stepped into her apartment. We'd met earlier at this little sushi place downtown. She was easy to talk to, laughed a lot, and seemed like the kind of person who'd be good company. The conversation flowed naturally, the kind that makes you forget how long you've been sitting. After we ate, she suggested we head back to her place for dessert because she had way better stuff than the restaurant. At the time, I didn't see a reason to say no. It felt innocent enough, casual, like something friends might do after dinner. Her apartment building was modern, with one of those keypad entries and a glass door. The hallway smelled faintly of cleaner and candles. A clean, sterile sort of smell that made me feel slightly off balance. We went up to the third floor, and she unlocked her door while still chatting about some TV show she'd been binge-watching. The casualness of it made me relax, but only a little. I stepped inside and noticed right away that the place was spotless, not just tidy, but staged, almost like a set for a home decor magazine. Every pillow was perfectly aligned. The floor gleamed, no clutter anywhere, candles flickering softly in corners. Even the faint hum of the air conditioner felt deliberate, almost like it was timed with the room's aesthetic. The table in the living room was already set for two. Plates, silverware, folded napkins, everything aligned perfectly. She gestured for me to sit while she went into the kitchen to grab dessert. That's when I noticed it. A small black camera sitting on the bookshelf across from me. At first, I didn't think much of it. People have security cameras these days. But then, I saw another one, mounted higher up near the ceiling, angled directly at the table. The red recording light was on. Me stomach sunk. I started scanning the room more carefully. There were at least 3 more, one by the TV, one half hidden near a lamp, and another just inside the hallway pointing toward the living room. Every single one of them was facing where I was sitting. She came back with a tray of cheesecake slices. She noticed where I was looking and casually said, "Oh, those are for security." Her tone was light, like mentioning a painting on the wall. But it didn't feel normal. None of the cameras were pointed at the doors or windows. They were all focused on me, on the table. I asked why she had so many cameras, trying to keep my voice calm. She shrugged and didn't meet my eyes directly. "You can never be too careful," she said. She started cutting into her cheesecake while the little red lights kept blinking. I could hear the faint whir of a motor in one of them, adjusting its angle ever so slightly. My skin crawled. I tried to eat, tried to act like nothing was wrong, but my eyes kept darting to the cameras. Who was watching? Was it stored somewhere? Uploaded to a cloud? Could someone be seeing me in real time? Every time I shifted, I watched one of them slowly tilt toward me. She didn't react. She just kept talking about the show she was watching, laughing quietly, completely calm, while I felt trapped under a gaze I couldn't escape. Halfway through dessert, she excused herself to grab something from her bedroom. As soon as she left, I heard faint clicking, not from her direction, but from the cameras. Shutter-like sounds, multiple in a row, mechanical and precise. My heart was hammering. That was it for me. I stood up, grabbed my jacket from the chair, and moved toward the door. When I tried to unlock it, I froze. There was an extra lock above the handle, one of those sliding bolts, and it was engaged. I turned just in time to see her coming back down the hallway. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her expression was controlled, neutral, almost evaluating. "Leaving so soon?" she asked, her voice casual. I said I just remembered I had to be somewhere. She stepped aside but didn't help with the lock. I had to slide it open myself while she stood there, silently watching, calm and unbothered. Once outside, I moved quickly down the hallway, heart racing, each step echoing off the walls. I couldn't stop thinking about how deliberate everything had been. The table perfectly centered in the room, the cameras angled just so, the lighting soft but bright enough for clear recording, the candles positioned carefully so they didn't obstruct any shots. Every detail felt calculated, every element designed to focus attention on me. When I got home, I checked my phone. There was a follow request from a private account I didn't recognize. No profile picture, no posts, nothing. I ignored it, telling myself it was probably just a coincidence. An hour later, I got a message from an unknown number. "Great dinner. You looked really good on camera." My stomach dropped. My hand shook. I blocked the number instantly. Even weeks later, I kept catching myself scanning rooms for hidden lenses. Restaurants, friends' apartments, hotel rooms everywhere. My eyes searched corners, ceilings, the backs of shelves. The red lights of those cameras haunted me. The way she acted like it was completely normal, like nothing at all was wrong, had broken something inside me. I don't know if she was filming for herself or if there was someone else watching. I'll never forget how those little red lights blinked in perfect rhythm. I'll never forget the way she had cut the cheesecake and talked about TV shows while mechanical eyes recorded every movement I made. And I'll never, ever forget how completely calm she looked while doing it, like it was just another day. I knew something felt off about him before the night even started, but I brushed it off. My friend had set us up, saying he was different from other guys and actually mature. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in town, somewhere public, so it wouldn't be awkward. When I walked in, he was already there. Tall, kind of quiet, but friendly enough. We got drinks and sat near the window. The first hour wasn't bad. We talked about random stuff, joked about how loud the espresso machine was, and even shared stories from college. I found myself laughing, thinking maybe my friend was right. Maybe he really was different from other guys. When it was time to leave, he asked if I could follow him back to his place for one quick thing. He said he'd forgotten something he needed before heading to the next spot. I hesitated. Something in the back of my mind tugged at me, but his apartment was supposedly just around the corner, so I thought, fine, what's the harm? We drove for a few minutes, but instead of pulling into a normal apartment complex, he turned into a narrow, almost deserted side street. The buildings looked older, paint peeling off the doors, windows grimy. He parked in front of a small, rundown building, unlocked the door, and held it open for me, as if nothing about it was unusual. I tried to dismiss the sudden knot of unease in my stomach. Inside, it was quiet, too quiet. No music, no hum of appliances, nothing but the sound of our shoes against the worn steps. The air was stale, like the windows hadn't been opened in months. He locked the door behind us, which struck me as odd, but I didn't say anything. Maybe it was just a habit, I told myself. We went up a short flight of stairs, and his apartment door was right there. He unlocked it, and once again, as soon as we stepped inside, he locked it behind us. This time, I noticed it wasn't just a regular lock. There was a chain, and one of those heavy-duty bolts. A warning bell went off in my head, but I tried to ignore it, pretending the lock was just another quirk. The place was dim, lit only by a single lamp in the corner. At first, I thought the walls were decorated with posters or some kind of art, but when I looked closer, my stomach sank. It wasn't art. It was photos, dozens of them, and they were all of me. Some were screenshots from my Instagram and Facebook, some were snapshots I didn't remember posting anywhere, and some looked like they were taken through windows, from across the street, or from places I had been in real life. Every single one was pinned neatly to the walls in rows, like some kind of obsessive collection. He just stood there, silently, watching me take in the scene. He didn't apologize, didn't explain, didn't act embarrassed. It was like he wanted me to see everything. My throat went dry, my hands shook, and I could feel my heart hammering against my ribs. I need to go, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I turned toward the door, but he stepped in front of it, not threatening, just blocking my path. The smile from the coffee shop was gone. His face was flat, blank, emotionless, like he was waiting for something I couldn't see. I just want to show you something else, he said, moving toward a drawer by the couch. He started pulling out more photos, loose stacks, some with notes scribbled on the back. The handwriting was neat, precise, but the messages made my stomach twist. Names, dates, places, all related to me. Every detail of my life meticulously documented. I could feel my pulse racing, my hands trembling. While he was distracted flipping through the stacks, I glanced toward the kitchen. There was a back door, but it had a sliding bolt on it too. I realized how trapped I really was, how carefully he had controlled the space. He started talking, but I wasn't listening. I was calculating my escape, how fast I could slide the chain lock, throw open the door, run down the stairs. My phone was in my pocket, but I doubted I'd get a signal in time. Every second felt like a lifetime. Every movement weighted with the fear of him noticing. When he turned his back for just a moment, I moved. I didn't hesitate. I lunged for the door, fumbling with the chain and finally throwing it off. I yanked the bolt open and bolted. Down the stairs, through the narrow hallway, and into the street. I ran without looking back. My hands were shaking so violently, I dropped my keys twice before getting into my car. I locked the doors, started the engine, and drove without direction, only wanting distance. My chest heaved. My legs were still trembling. Even with the city lights blurring past, I felt like I was still inside that apartment, under his gaze. When I finally got home, I sat in my car for several minutes just breathing, trying to steady my heart. I went through my social media, setting everything to private, deleting old posts, revoking access, and blocking his number before he could try to reach me. The thought of someone else having even a glimpse of my life was unbearable. I never told my friend exactly what happened. I only said I didn't want to see him again. But sometimes, late at night, I can't stop thinking about it, the way he had all those photos, the precision of it, the complete calmness in his face. How long had he been watching me before that night? How many of the photos weren't from social media at all? Even now, months later, I find myself scanning rooms when I enter them, looking for hidden cameras, checking if my blinds are fully drawn, feeling that same rush of fear I felt in that apartment. The experience changed me. It reminded me how quickly ordinary situations can spiral into something dangerous. And it reminded me to trust my gut, because that little voice in my head had been right all along. I should have known something was off the second I walked into the place. It wasn't even the kind of spot you'd pick for a first date. No music, too many people crammed into small tables, the kind of lighting that makes everyone look pale. But I'd already parked, and she was sitting at a table near the back, waving me over like we'd known each other for years. She looked exactly like her photo, maybe even better. Friendly, smiling, dressed nice but casual. I figured, okay, maybe the night's not going to be a total waste. We sat down, and right away she seemed jumpy. Not nervous in a cute way, just distracted. Her eyes kept flicking to the entrance every time someone came in. I thought maybe she was shy, but she didn't seem shy when she was talking. She was asking me questions fast, like she was trying to get through a checklist. Where I worked, if I lived alone, if I'd been to this part of town before, all while glancing at the door. We ordered drinks. I was mid-story about something dumb that happened at work when she suddenly leaned back, picked up her phone, and tapped out a quick message without even looking at me. I pretended not to notice. But when she put the phone down, she looked at the door again and then smiled, but not at me. That's when this guy walked in. Big dude, built like he lived at the gym, wearing a cap low over his face. He spotted her instantly, didn't even hesitate, walked straight over to our table. She didn't flinch. She didn't look surprised. She just sat there with this half smirk while I tried to figure out what the hell was happening. He stopped right next to me, towering over the table. I glanced up, expecting him to be a waiter, telling us to move or something. But he just stared at me, then at her, then back at me. And before I could even get a word out, he shoved me. Hard. My chair tipped back and almost went over. The whole place went silent for a second. I was too shocked to react. I had no idea who he was or what his problem was. Then he started yelling. Not at her, at me. He was calling me every name under the sun, accusing me of being with his girl. I looked at her, waiting for her to step in, to say something, but she didn't. She just sat there, calm as anything, watching like it was a show. That's when it clicked. This wasn't some random jealous boyfriend catching his partner cheating. This was planned. She'd set the whole thing up. The weird venue choice, the constant glances at the door, the quick message before he walked in. All of it made sense. She'd lured me here just so he could confront me. I tried to get up and leave, but he shoved me again, this time harder, and my drink spilled across the table. The glass shattered on the floor. People started standing up, some pulling out their phones, others calling for staff. He didn't care. He grabbed the front of my shirt and pulled me forward so close I could smell whatever cologne he'd drowned himself in. His eyes were locked on mine, full of rage that wasn't even about me. It was about her, and she was sitting there feeding off it. A waiter rushed over and tried to wedge himself between us, but the guy shoved him too. I could feel everyone staring, whispering, filming. I yanked myself free and stepped back, trying to keep distance. My heart was hammering so hard, I could barely hear what he was saying anymore. She still hadn't moved. She was sipping her drink now, completely relaxed, watching me get cornered like it was nothing to do with her. Then he swung. Not a warning, not a shove, a full punch. It connected with my shoulder, sent me stumbling sideways into another table. Plates crashed, people jumped back. That was enough for two other guys in the restaurant to step in, grabbing him by the arms and dragging him toward the door. He was still shouting over their shoulders, promising he'd see me again. I just stood there for a second, breathing hard, looking at her. She didn't look scared. She didn't look sorry. She looked satisfied. Like this was exactly how she wanted the night to go. One of the waiters asked if I was okay, but I ignored him. I just wanted out. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair and walked straight past her without saying a word. I could feel her eyes on me all the way to the exit. When I got outside, the air felt cold, sharper than before. My hands were still shaking. The guy was nowhere to be seen, but I didn't hang around to find out where he went. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove. I didn't stop until I was back in my own driveway. I just sat there in the car, headlights still on, replaying the whole thing in my head. The way she'd looked at him when he walked in. The way she'd sat there, calm as ever, letting him do whatever he wanted. I didn't text my friends. I didn't tell anyone that night. I didn't even block her number, I just deleted it. The next morning, I woke up to a DM from an account I didn't recognize. It was a picture of me from last night, standing at the table right before he hit me. No caption, no explanation, just the photo. That's when I blocked everything. Numbers, accounts, even my friends who'd set us up. I still don't know what she told him about me, or why she picked me specifically. Maybe she does it to other people. Maybe I was just unlucky enough to be next on the list. Either way, I'm done letting someone else arrange a date for me. I wasn't even in the mood to go out that night. My friends had been telling me I needed to get back out there after my last breakup, so I finally gave in and agreed to a blind date they'd set up through some mutual friend of a friend. They gave me his first name, a vague description, and told me he was cool. That was it. We met at this small bar downtown, one of those half-dive, half-trendy places with sticky floors but expensive drinks. He was already there when I walked in, sitting at a corner table with a drink in front of him. First impression? Normal enough. He stood up, smiled, said hello. He had that kind of overly relaxed vibe, like he'd been here a million times before. The first half hour was normal. We ordered drinks, swapped small talk, joked about the weird music playlist the bar had going, but pretty quickly, I started noticing something strange. Every time he moved his arm, he'd angle it toward me just enough for me to see a tattoo on his forearm. At first, I didn't think much of it. People get tattoos all the time and love to show them off. Then I actually saw what it was. It was my name. Not just my name, the exact spelling. Same uncommon way I spell it, not the usual version people assume. I tried to brush it off as coincidence, but it didn't sit right. We'd never met before tonight. There's no way he could have known my name in advance unless my friends told him. Even then, why get it tattooed? It looked fresh, too, like maybe a few weeks old. The skin around it wasn't red, but it still had that crisp, dark ink look. I didn't say anything at first. I just kept watching how he moved his arm. He was doing it on purpose, leaning his elbow on the table, pushing his sleeve up, adjusting his drink with that arm, always giving me a clear view. Halfway through the date, I excused myself to the bathroom and texted my friend who set us up, asking exactly what she'd told him about me. She replied that she just told him my name, my age, and that I was single. That's it. Nothing else. When I came back, he was sitting in the exact same position, arm out, tattoo perfectly visible under the dim bar light. He smiled like nothing was weird. I tried to keep the conversation going, but I couldn't focus. Every time my eyes flicked down at his arm, it was like the letters were staring back at me. I started wondering when he got it. Was it years ago? Was it for someone else who just happened to have the same name? Or did he do it for me? That last thought made my stomach turn. I asked how long he'd had the tattoo, just to see his reaction. He paused for a second, then shrugged and said, "A while. No date, no story, no explanation." Then he changed the subject, but still kept his arm in view. The rest of the night got more awkward. He started asking really specific questions about my routines, where I shop for groceries, what streets I take to work, which gym I go to, the kind of stuff people usually don't care about on a first date. At one point, I caught him looking at me in this weird way, like he was studying my face and matching it to something in his head. His hand drifted to the tattoo, and he rubbed it lightly with his thumb, almost like it was some sort of comfort habit. By the time we finished our drinks, I knew I wasn't sticking around for a second round. I told him I had an early morning and needed to head out. He offered to walk me to my car, but something about the way he said it made me want to avoid being alone with him in a quiet parking lot. I told him my car was parked the other way and left quickly. As I walked, I kept glancing behind me, half expecting him to follow. The streets downtown were still busy enough that I felt okay, but my hands were sweating, I didn't relax until I was inside my car with the doors locked. When I got home, I checked his social media. Nothing came up under his first name and location. It was like he didn't exist online. That, somehow, made it worse. I didn't hear from him until 2 days later, when I got a text from an unknown number. It just said, "Had a great time. Hope to see you soon." No name, no emoji, just that. I blocked it. Then a week later, I was walking to my car after work, and there was a small envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. Inside was a single piece of paper with my name written on it in black marker, same handwriting style as the tattoo. No message, nothing else. I don't know if it was him. I never saw him again. But sometimes I think about that tattoo, and how fresh it looked, and how he kept showing it off like it was something I was supposed to be impressed by. The worst part is knowing there's a chance he got it before we even met, and that means he knew about me long before anyone told me his name. I didn't even want to go on this date in the first place. My cousin's girlfriend had been bugging me for weeks, swearing she had this cool, down-to-earth friend I'd get along with. I'd been single for a while, so eventually, I caved. "Fine," I told her. "Set it up." We agreed on a diner halfway between our towns. Public place, neutral ground safe. She pulled up right on time in a little silver hatchback, hopped out, and gave me a quick wave. She looked exactly like her pictures, which was a rare enough surprise. She had a friendly, relaxed way about her, so I let my guard down a little. We grabbed a booth, ordered burgers and fries, and talked for about 40 minutes. It wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing either, but there was nothing that made me want to run for the door. Halfway through, she glanced at her phone and frowned. "Oh, I forgot something at my place," she said. "Mind if we swing by before we do anything else?" I asked if it was far. She shook her head. "Not at all. Just follow me." I didn't think much of it. Maybe she left her wallet or needed to feed a pet. I paid my half of the bill. We walked out to the lot, and I pulled out behind her as she headed toward the highway. At first, it was all main streets, gas stations glowing under harsh fluorescent lights, the golden arches of McDonald's, strip malls. But after a few minutes, she turned onto a quieter road I didn't recognize. I figured maybe she lived on the outskirts somewhere. The houses got fewer and farther apart. Patches of fields replaced front yards, and the road narrowed. My cell phone screen glowed faintly in the cup holder, showing just one bar of signal. I glanced at it, made a mental note to keep an eye on that, but didn't think much more of it. We drove for maybe 10 minutes without passing a single car. Then the asphalt gave way to cracked, patchy gravel. Dust swirled up behind her tires, forcing me to roll my window halfway up so I wasn't choking on it. There were no streetlights now, just long, shadowy stretches where the trees closed in overhead. That's when I felt it a shift in my stomach, like my instincts were tugging on my sleeve. This didn't feel like the way to someone's house. It felt like the middle of nowhere. Still, I kept following, telling myself she probably lived tucked away from the main roads. Then she slowed and flicked her blinker on, turning onto what could barely be called a road. It looked more like an old logging trail dirt, uneven, lined with trees so close they nearly brushed the mirrors. I hesitated but followed. My headlights bounced off the back of her car as we crawled forward, every rut in the path jolting my steering wheel. The air seemed heavier here, muffled, like the trees swallowed sound. I glanced at my phone again, no service. None. After about 3 minutes of this, she suddenly gunned it. Not a gradual increase, just slammed the gas. The dirt kicked up behind her, and her taillights shot forward. I pressed my foot down, but the path was too rough to go fast without risking my suspension. Her car disappeared around a bend, and when I caught up, she was gone. No brake lights, no sign of her, just the dirt road stretching ahead into darkness. I kept driving, thinking maybe she'd pulled up to a driveway just ahead. But instead, the road ended abruptly in a small clearing. It was empty. No house, no cars, just weeds, an old rusted metal barrel tipped on its side, and a couple of broken fence posts leaning like they'd been that way for years. That was the moment my stomach dropped completely. I was alone, deep in the woods, with no cell service and no idea where I was. I turned the car around fast and started back the way I came, scanning the trees on either side. Every turn looked the same, and the dirt path seemed even narrower going back. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than I realized. About halfway back to the gravel road, I caught something in my rearview mirror, a faint glimmer. Headlights? It was hard to tell. I slowed a little, leaning to get a better look. Nothing. The road behind me was empty, just my taillights reflecting off the trees. I kept driving, forcing myself not to stop again. My mind was going a mile a minute. Was this some kind of prank? Was someone waiting in that clearing? Was I being followed? When I finally hit gravel again, I almost laughed from relief. I pressed on until I found the main road, then guessed a direction and took a left. I drove until I spotted a gas station glowing like a beacon. I pulled in and just sat there for a second, hands still tight on the wheel. The hum of the lights overhead was loud in my ears, grounding me. I checked my phone. One missed call from my cousin's girlfriend. I called her back. She said you ditched her in the middle of nowhere, she told me. What? My voice came out sharper than I meant. She sped off. I lost her. There was a pause. Weird, she said finally. She didn't mention that. I didn't bother explaining the whole thing. I just told her I was going home. The weirdest part? I never heard from her again. No texts, no calls, no sorry, or what happened. It was like she'd erased me from existence. I've replayed it in my head so many times. I can't figure out why. Was it a joke gone wrong? Was she trying to scare me? Or was there something or someone out there in that clearing that I never saw? All I know is, I'll never follow someone down an unmarked road again. I swear this blind date was supposed to be normal. My friend set it up through one of her coworkers' cousins, said he was super chill and funny. I figured it'd just be a quick coffee or a drink and then I'd be back home. I didn't even dress fancy. Just jeans, hoodie, sneakers. I met him outside this little cafe near the bus station, and at first, he seemed fine. Not overly talkative, but friendly enough. We got our drinks, sat for about 20 minutes, and then he said he had to swing by somewhere before dinner. I thought maybe it was to pick something up or meet a friend briefly, so I didn't think much of it. He had a car parked right outside. It was one of those old, slightly beat-up hatchbacks that rattles when it idles. The inside smelled like cheap air freshener mixed with something stale, maybe cigarettes. We started driving, and at first, I recognized the street's main roads, traffic lights, all normal. But then he turned off onto a smaller road. No houses, no shops, just trees and long stretches of empty fields. I remember glancing out the window and thinking we must have taken a shortcut or something. About 10 minutes in, I checked my phone. No signal, not one bar. Literally nothing. My stomach sank a bit, but I tried to keep it cool. I asked where we were headed, and he just said, really casually, that he had to meet a friend quickly. No explanation, no details. He didn't look at me when he said it. His eyes were locked on the road like he was following some invisible line only he could see. The further we went, the quieter it got. I don't mean just inside the car. The road had no traffic, no streetlights, no sound except the tires on the gravel and that faint rattle from the engine. The air outside looked different too, kind of dim, even though it wasn't that late, just gray and heavy. After a while, he said something that made my skin crawl. Out of nowhere, in this flat, almost rehearsed voice, he said, "No one can hear us out here." Just that. No laugh, no smirk, like he was just stating a fact. I laughed awkwardly, trying to play it off, but he didn't respond. He just kept driving, both hands on the wheel, eyes locked forward. That was when I realized there were no signs anywhere, not even those little green road markers. The trees on both sides leaned over the road, making it feel like a tunnel. I started thinking about whether I could get out while the car was moving, but we were going too fast, and the ground outside looked rough. My brain was running through every worst-case scenario. I quietly unlocked my door, just in case, and kept my hand resting on the handle. I told him I had to use the bathroom, thinking maybe he'd stop somewhere, but he just said there was nothing for miles, and to hold it. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then we passed this tiny, beat-up gas station, the kind that looks like it hasn't been open in 20 years. The windows were boarded up, but there was a single payphone outside. I told him to stop, pretending I needed water. He slowed down but didn't pull in. He just said we were almost there. Every few minutes after that, he'd say the same thing. No one can hear us out here. Always the same tone, like he was reminding me. I started thinking maybe this was his way of intimidating me. It didn't sound like a joke anymore. Eventually, the road narrowed to the point where tree branches scraped the sides of the car. The sky was almost dark now, and there was still no sign of houses or lights. I had no clue where we were, but my gut was screaming that if I let him take me any further, I might not get back. I spotted a break in the trees, a dirt path wide enough for a car to pull over. I said I was feeling sick and needed air, and before he could argue, I reached over and yanked the handbrake. The car jolted hard, and he swore under his breath. I grabbed my bag, flung the door open, and bolted toward the trees. The ground was uneven, covered in roots and dry leaves, but I didn't stop. I could hear him yelling behind me, then the sound of his car door slamming. I didn't look back. I just kept running until I couldn't hear him anymore, only my own ragged breathing. After what felt like forever, I saw headlights through the trees, not his car, but a pickup truck coming down a small side road. I stumbled out, waving my arms, and the driver slammed the brakes. I was shaking so hard I could barely explain what happened, but he let me climb in and lock the doors. He drove me to the nearest town, which turned out to be almost 30 minutes away. That's how far off track we were. I called my friend to pick me up, and she kept asking why I sounded like I'd been running. I didn't tell her everything right then. I couldn't. I just knew I was done with blind dates for a long time. When I got home, I realized my hands were still trembling. Even hours later, my phone finally had service, but there were no messages from him. Not one. It was like he'd just erased the whole thing from his mind. I keep thinking about what he said in the car, over and over. No one can hear us out here. I don't know if he meant it as some kind of creepy joke, or if he was dead serious. Either way, I'm just glad I didn't stick around to find out.